Clubhouse.
Welcome to Book Club Meets Movie Night, where you can join the club and see the show. This is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Tonight we're discussing the 2021 Netflix 6-episode adaptation of Sarah Pinborough's 2017 novel, Behind Her Eyes.
That was a mouthful, Mike.
It was.
Listen.
A lot of numbers, it felt like. More numbers than I wrote it out, and then when I actually saying it, I was like, I feel like I'm giving nuclear codes.
So much. So you guys, in part one of this miniseries, we discussed the book, so go check that out. For our first two miniseries that we brought to you guys, we discussed the book, and we're going to discuss the movie and TV adaptation in separate episodes. But moving forward, we think we're going to put those all in one, because as it turns out, it's kind of difficult for us to both read and watch without being able to discuss the whole thing in one.
The twist in the book is so twisty. It's hard to put that genie back in the bottle or the toothpaste back in the toothpaste tube when you go to watch, like, what's coming at some point. You're getting Rob Dell, you're getting Rob Louise at some point. So now you're just waiting for it to happen, which is unfair to it. Now, that's still going to happen because we're still going to read the book and then watch the show. But at least in terms of talking about it,
we just got to do it all in one.
Yeah, just got to do it all in one. There's no real reason.
We're learning, you guys.
This is the refining process.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, tell us what is our book this week and give us a little synopsis.
So we previously talked about Behind Her Eyes, the book. We're doing the Netflix adaptation from 2021 here. It starred Simona Brown as Louise, Tom Bateman as David, Eve Hewson as Adele, and Robert Arameo, conveniently, as Rob. It was created for television by Steve Lightfoot, and all of the episodes were directed by Eric Richter Strand.
So you guys, there's going to definitely be spoils in this, and this is a completely twisty book. So if you haven't read the book and you don't know the twist and you don't want to know the twist, go read, come back, or go watch the show and come back. But if you're sticking around with us, then we assume you don't mind us telling you all the nitty gritty.
Louise, played by Simona Brown, is a single mother who begins an affair with her new boss, David. Matters take a strange turn when she is drawn into an unlikely friendship with his wife Adele, Eve Hewson, when what starts as an unconventional love triangle soon becomes a dark psychological tale of suspense and twisted revelations as Louise finds herself caught in a dangerous web of secrets where nothing and no one are what they seem. All right, now the synopsis fails immediately because it doesn't mention Rob. He's in one of the four actors of the above the line. How do you do a synopsis of this and not mention Rob at all, seeing as it turns out he is a key figure in the show? How do you not have a Adele haunted by her past relationship with the enigmatic Rob?
That's a tricky move on their part, right?
Yeah, Wikipedia, I'm judging you.
So on its own, what did you think about this TV show? Like, if you just had found it, you'd never read the book, you had no idea what this was about, it's like Saturday afternoon, you're like folding laundry and you're like, hey, what's this Netflix show about?
There's an inherent problem, right? I've read the book, so it's impossible to experience this twist again for the first time. That being said, I like the TV show, I think, better than I like the book in most ways, because I think this story actually ended up working visually better than just reading it. And also, I feel like with the 6 hours devoted to it, that's basically the same amount of time it probably took to read the book. It ends up being a pretty good adaptation of the book. Some things I guess they felt like they needed to change for the times. This was a perfect binge in an afternoon. I will never think about this again, not even for a second once we're done. It made no lasting impact on me whatsoever.
So for me, I had the same problem because I had already read the book. And so when I sat down, I was like, how am I going to enjoy this if I already know the big twist? So when I first sat down, I was very interested in the casting. I felt like there were differences in the way that I thought of these cast members and the way that they were cast. I want to start off with Adele specifically. So for me, Adele was described as this Angelina Jolie type. Now, I think that Eve Hewson is a beautiful woman. I think that she would be described as cute by a lot of people. She's probably an adorable child, those types of words. However, those are not the types of adjectives that I would apply to somebody who I would say was an Angelina Jolie type. I would say that that person has to be like knock you over, stunning, gorgeous, take your breath away, just floor you. Eve just didn't bring that gravitas with her. Like, she didn't have that, like, I am striking, everyone in the room gasps when I walk in. That part was a problem for me because she was supposed to be such this juxtaposition to Louise.
This is the quote from the book. "The gut punch of the woman I'd glimpsed by his side before I dashed into hiding. His beautiful wife. Elegant. Dark-haired and olive-skinned in an Angelina Jolie way. That kind of mystery about her. Exceptionally slim. The opposite of me." Okay. Eve Hewson, I agree with you. Her dad is Bono, right? She struck me as very Irish feeling, and cute, I think, is a great adjective to her. I did not find her elegant. I did not find her olive-skinned in any kind of way. Yes, there's mystery about her. I think that was more of the directing and the cinematography than something coming out of the character. I think an Angelina Jolie type, like you were saying, that's something that's coming out of Angelina Jolie. I don't think it's necessarily because of how she acts. There's something that radiates out from her that gives off that kind of persona. And exceptionally slim. Now, she's obviously very thin, but I think the Louise actor is as slim, if not as slimmer than her. And that's one of my issues with the casting is Simona Brown is beautiful and not dumpy, not blonde, and not the opposite of Eve Hewson in body type, right? They're both slim women. When they have her go to the gym, it's one of the actual few, like, not montagey scenes between Louise and Adele. They have her go on the treadmill and she acts like she's never run before. Okay. You wouldn't look at her and be like, wow, she needs to get to the gym. You wouldn't look at her and, like they have in the book, the blonde and attractive, if you like that sort of thing, woman behind that desk scurried away before we could be introduced. Okay, that's Adele describing Louise. She looks very young, her wet blonde curls pushed out of her face and dripping onto her shoulders. And I think when she's lost half a stone or so, her bone structure is going to be to die for. How does she see me? This is Louise speaking now. Am I a dumpy, scruffy blonde in her eyes, or am I something else? I don't care about the hair color or anything like that. I just read this headline. It was like The Atlantic or some online magazine was like, stop having beautiful people play regular people. Like, enough. Like, every show is supposed to be, this is down on their luck, dumpy, middle class, blue collar worker. And they've get like a supermodel to play the wife and like a GQ sexiest man, People sexiest man of like the year to play the husband. I'm not saying Simona Brown is a supermodel. She's very pretty. She's very attractive.
She's not dumpy,
you
that's
would never call her dumpy in a million years. You would not say she needs to lose half a stone. That's 7 pounds also. Like, these were supposed to be diametrically opposed to the point where you look at David and you're like, how are you married to her, but you're chasing her? Right? That's part of the conflict is Adele and Louise are supposed to be such polar opposites. And I just didn't get that. Yes, Louise looks like a little bit of a mess the way any kind of single parent oftentimes is a little bit of a mess at trying to keep all of their shit together. Not from a looks or physical standpoint. I feel like it was a little bit of off casting because of that. And in the same way, not once did Adele walk into a room or the camera switched to her and I lost my breath.
Right.
And when we covered the book, I think I said to you, when we go to watch the show, Adele and David better be the most attractive, knock me out kind of people I have ever seen. And they're very attractive people, but the gravitas, like you said, wasn't there. Tom Bateman, he does a lot of good staring. He makes a lot of intense eye contact, not in the way where like Anthony is going to, turn his life around with the drug use, or that people are going to be under his spell like immediately. But the TV show actually doesn't make that an issue at all. If you hadn't read the book and you just saw this, you wouldn't even know this was an issue. There's nothing about the TV show where Adele is giving any kind of internal monologue and she's like, oh, she's so dumpy. She doesn't actually say that. That's something we're carrying over from the book and talking about how they cast a TV show. But the majority of the people who are going to be drawn to, like, I can't wait for Behind Her Eyes, the TV show, to come out, who don't stumble on it by accident on Netflix, are people who read the book who are looking for the adaptation. So I imagine this has to be an issue for a lot of people who saw the TV show.
There's something about the character of Adele, which for me, I almost think of her as like Panther-like. Like I imagine her walking barefoot through that big glass windowed home, almost like silky walking, you know, like kind of like long legs, like dripping in some sort of like silky robe or something like that. Like there has to be something about her that to me, I needed her to like kind of drip some sort of sexiness. You got this electric vibe off of something that would be enough because we have to justify the actions of Louise. And so much of it, as you described, when you said they both needed to be like unbelievably attractive in order to possibly justify the moves that Louise makes, but also not just attractiveness. We also were begging for them to be the most charming people, the most like alluring people, that something about them would actually help us justify why Louise would put her child in danger, put herself in danger, continue on with this whole situation for as long as she does. These people have got to be the most magnetic people to ever walk the earth.
Magnetic and charismatic. Those are the two words that I was searching for. And I think at the end of the day, this is going to be something that I keep coming back to, so I'm going to try not to repeat it constantly. This is a great example, though, of the TV show is actually hampered by the book existing. If I was giving someone a recommendation, I would say skip the book, watch the show.
Funny, me too.
Enjoy it on its face. Don't be spoiled by the book, not because of the twist, but because of the twist, but all of the other ancillary stuff too. Don't bring any of the baggage of expectations from the characters or their interactions, because they focus on a lot of different things. The TV show focuses a lot more on the Rob relationship and Rob's existence in the show, and Rob's sexuality is in the show. It focuses a lot less on the relationship between Adele and Louise. There's a different focus in the TV show that if you come in from having read the book, you're going to be disappointed or disjointed, where if you don't know the book, I think you can maybe enjoy this more just on its face as a psychological thriller with a twist.
I agree with you very much, especially from the standpoint of the twist. I think that there was something about the visual nature of explaining the twist, and a TV show controls the pacing for you as the watcher, as opposed to the book, where you can choose at any point in time to, you know, skim a page or flip a page or whatever you want, right? Like you can change the pacing of a book. When it comes to a TV show, yes, of course you can fast forward, but basically if you're just like handling it like they're dishing it out to you at this particular pace, for me, I thought that the TV show did a better job of sprinkling in important things you needed for the foundation of the twist much earlier on. And because they have the luxury of holding your attention, and you're not necessarily, let's assume you're not going to fast forward, then like when I was reading, I wasn't putting near enough emphasis on Rob's role in the entire story, not until the very end. Now, the TV show can actually modulate that for you, and they can actually turn up the heat a little bit and be like, no, you need to spend more time on this character. Like, check out, like you were mentioning, like his sexuality is far more explicit. They show the interactions between him and Adele when they were younger, and it was so much more impactful to see it visually than it was for me to read it. I was reading it like it was a flashback, like it was a memory, like this was just giving us some sort of context to why she is the way she is now, but not obviously the type of context that it really was. So then when you even find it out at the end in the book, it feels like you were so misled. The payoff felt kind of rough. Whereas like, I think in the show, because they laid out so much more and they forced you to concentrate and focus, that's the fun of being like the director with the camera. They can literally put your eyes where they want your eyes as the viewer. And in that regard, I feel like hovering above, I totally got the twist so much better. Obviously using the colorful lights and the zipping around and all the different, the assigned colors to the different people. It made so much more sense. Like I read this book with my book club and I had plenty of people be like, this just like, I couldn't wrap my brain around the twist. Like I understand it, but I don't get it. The show helps you get it more.
The show does a lot more hand-holding and signaling, but in a good way, not in a pejorative sense. I think usually that's meant in like a way that diminishes the product. They give you the the roadmap to understand what's happening, the way they float up and it's kind of hazy to indicate Adele is watching astrally projecting. Before they even introduce that concept, you see the camera. It's different than when there's just characters 1 and 2 shots, right? When they do introduce astral projection, you're like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing here in a way that visually connects better. And so it's and also I think for the end twist, it's such a big leap to those final couple of decisions that get made by Louise and the plan that it turns out Rob Dell had all along. You needed better setup, where it worked better for me, the visual setup for several episodes before that final twist. The jump was still a lot to be like, this was the plan all along.
Right.
It didn't feel like as big a leap because they had laid the foundation earlier.
I would describe it like the TV show put like a harness on you so that when it was time to take the leap, you felt like supported. Like it was like, we're going to make this leap, but we're all making this leap together. Like the characters and you, the reader, watcher, everybody is taking this leap together. Whereas in the book, because you're one person reading a book, there's something about it that feels so much more isolated, and it feels like I'm the only one being taken for a ride here as the reader. As opposed to when we're watching the show, there was something about it that made it feel like everyone in the show was surprised. I was surprised. It was sort of this supported moment that I was like a part of, as opposed to as a reader, I felt bamboozled, like I was the only one not in on the joke, which is different. That's a very different feeling.
It is, and there was some bad taste left in my mouth after reading the book. I still have some problems with the decisions, but I want to get into some specific movie versus book discussion, because I think some of the changes that they made and some of the things that they did differently, the twist is still too much for me, but it played better for me, definitely for the TV show. So let's start at the David Louise relationship. The TV show goes into showing the actual night where David meets Louise, where they kiss, but nothing else happens. In the book, this actually happens before the book actually even starts. Here, they take the time to show the scene. Having done that, did David and Louise make more sense to you? Were you more invested in that relationship? Did you appreciate their attraction to each other more, less, or the same as you did in the book?
Definitely more. I think I complained a lot in our podcast where we were just talking about the book that I really never saw David and Louise as a real relationship. Like when they get married at the end, I was sort of like, what? Like they didn't feel like they were nearly close enough to have that relationship, especially given all that had been going wrong. Like, I mean, hello, she was fired and all the things beyond just the Adele stuff. If you just looked at the David and Louise relationship, I'm using quotes on that one, I never got it in the book. I never felt like it was substantial enough to explain any of this. In the show, I felt like we got more of Louise's buy-in. I felt like we were seeing her fall more for him. There was more subtleties. Just the intimacy was there in a way that you could see it and experience it. It felt more impactful, to visually see that. Now, we're going to maybe just find out that Caroline's a very visual person. And maybe that is what this will all turn out to be, this experiment we're doing with Book Club. But I definitely felt like they were much more of a real relationship in the show.
I agree. I think that scene was an important scene. I wish the book had it, because I think the book portrays it much more tawdry.
And kind of toxic and weird, the way that he would just show up drunk, and it would sort of just be these very and I'm not saying the show didn't show plenty of times where she kind of was going to go unlock the chain lock, and it would be like, girl, don't do it. Don't unlock the goddamn chain lock right this time. Don't get into it with this guy again. I don't know. It felt more real.
With all they went through, this relationship seems doomed, even if it turned out David actually hadn't done anything wrong, and Louise, Rob being inside her aside from that, didn't do anything wrong. These two should not be together, though. David should run from the situation. Louise should run from the situation. The fact that they get married within, even a year, and I really get the feeling it's maybe just months after the events of the story.
I think it is just months. Little guy Adam did not look much older.
Right. It plays better in the show because you buy into, I think, and maybe this is just because it's visual, the visual aspect of it, but I think that scene of them getting together does go a long way, though, because it's not just sex. There is a connection and a chemistry there that the show is able to demonstrate for us that the book doesn't. The book doesn't make it chemistry. The book makes it more about sex, which gets harder to root for them.
Much more lusty, and like that there's not a lot of foundation for a relationship.
For me, one of the other big questions that I was left thinking about after finishing the TV show, and again, versus the book, was there enough Adele in this? Was there not enough Adele in this? I think everyone could agree. I don't think the TV show definitely didn't focus as much on the Adele-Louise relationship as the book did. So for me, it was harder to invest in Louise's feelings and her choices that she made for Adele in the TV show, because I didn't feel their relationship as much as I did in the book, because I feel like the book spent a lot more time cultivating that. And because of that, I also felt like there wasn't a lot of Adele. I feel like I didn't really have a good sense of Adele in the TV show as I did in the book, because I feel like the book gave us more of her POV, so we had a better understanding of her thoughts.
I also think that there's a portion of the book where, because they hid more from us longer, we had a lot more time with Adele. And definitely, I know we discussed this a whole lot in the other podcast, but they left that, is it possible that David is an abuser? They left that like hanging over the book for like a very long time. Like they never explain that black eye. Whereas in the show, they show the black eye and they explain how she got it and all that. So it really dispelled David being the abuser like much earlier on, and really, or even played that down like so much more. In the book, there was, I mean, I thought there was just blatant moments where you were supposed to feel like, oh my God, this woman is really being abused and that's what's happening, which is, again, creates more of the twist when you find out more that she's the manipulator of the two. And I think that changes that character so much, because you have so much more sympathy for her, more empathy for her, everything that in the book. Whereas I felt like in the show, I never warmed up to her. I never was rooting for her. I never cared if David came home to her. She always seemed like there was something more about
sinister.
her. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's something more sinister and malicious. I think you said it perfectly just now. You never really root for her in the TV show. One, because I don't think you really know her. Her and Louise are definitely the central characters of the book. I think she's like the tertiary character kind of in the TV show. I think it's definitely Louise's story and Louise and David and Rob. It's really Rob and Adele's story more than just Adele's story. So it's an interesting shift in focus, the way they brought up aspects of it, like making us more invested in the David-Louise relationship, and really downplayed Adele's kind of spiraling role. But for me, it was particularly the lack of scenes between Adele and Louise. I think I described it too as it felt more montagey. Anytime that they were together, it was more of like a montage of things versus isolated. Let's get to know like this female friendship here, based out of guilt, right? Because Louise does have guilt, and I think that still comes through. It dances more of like at least from Louise's point of view, like they do develop a friendship, even though the origin of it is in her feeling guilty for kissing her husband before she knew her and feeling attracted to him. I think there was also a lot less of Adele trying to change Louise, as it turns out, for her final plan in the TV show, which I guess I'm okay with, because again, had I never read the book, I wouldn't have known that I was supposed to think Louise was frumpy or dumpy looking, that she needed to be changed. Maybe that's why they didn't play up that aspect of it, because they kind of did away with it entirely.
Yeah, and these are all very subtle things. Like if you've read the book and you're like, I don't really see this the same way as you guys do, I could understand that. We had a little bit of separation between when we read the book and when we watched the show, and I think that mattered a little bit, because it almost created a blank slate for us to watch the show. And when we sat down and watched the show, like immediately, yes, I did compare the characters right away, but I actually preferred the way that the plot revealed itself and where they put the emphasis on different characters, like having Rob play bigger role made the ending make so much more sense. And perhaps the author maybe got caught up so much in wanting to hide the twist that they wanted to hide Rob. They wanted to keep that not too loud so that you kind of forgot about him a little bit. But the thing is that this twist is so wild that you didn't really have to hide Rob, because even in plain sight, there was nothing that made you thought you were going there until that really happens, until it really happens. And then you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, now I do see, what was laid out in front of us. But that's what I actually think the book might suffer from, that desire to hide the twist so much. You don't even realize that the twist is so twisty that you don't have to hide it, because we wouldn't have guessed it.
I'm ticking off of my fingers things in the book that you find out at the very last, within like the last 10 pages, Rob is gay, which, okay, fine, maybe, but there's even with that, right? Because he does give the blowjob to the orderly in order to get the drugs. But again, we talked about it when we talked about the book. There's ambiguity there because addicts will do a lot of things in order to score drugs. So that is inconclusive. But then his reaction of, you get his point of view talking about David stepped out of the car and I was breathless. Like, okay, this is the very end of the book and you're just explaining this now, that she got the black eye. Okay, we wondered about the black eye, but you hid it for so long that she was trying to get the drugs, right? All of the heroin use, a lot of the heroin use became explicit at the end. Like, they held back so much that you're 1,000% right. You could have given to us more.
Because we wouldn't have guessed it still.
Right, you wouldn't have guessed it, and it would have actually helped you buy in more to, this is just a very good relationship-based psychological thriller, right? This is much more Fatal Attraction-esque, and not Fatal Attraction and astral projection body swapping. Right? The astral projection body swapping, no matter when you introduce that, people are going to be like, what the hell?
Exactly.
So you could have revealed a lot more of the other stuff that you really
maybe
held
the
back.
Author, maybe Sarah Pinborough, if you're listening, maybe she thought, no, people are going to get it. It's going to be too obvious. I have to make sure that this Rob character is more veiled, like throughout. I have to make it just flashbacks. I have to make it seem like he's from a long time ago and we don't ever think of him in current day.
Even knowing the twist and watching the show where they do astrally project together, right? They have the color coded astral projection so you could see their little
souls,
spirits,
your souls
floating through and flying through, kind of like the old HBO intro program where they would fly through the town, kind of like, even with that.
Yeah.
I used to call those flying garbage cans when the HBO logo was on its side. I don't know why. I spent years, like my own kind of therapy, trying to figure out why they reminded me of garbage cans when I was little.
Like the lids?
Yeah, something. I don't know why, but HBO, like on its side, used to make me think of garbage cans. I'd be like, the flying garbage cans. I was a
You're
dumb
a city
kid.
boy.
I was a city boy, but we had HBO from like back, so that's like what in my head, the HBO. Anyway, the flying through the town, even knowing all of that, it's still such a crazy fucking jump that they're going to swap bodies and that Louise is going to leave her body to do something upstairs to try and wake Adele's heroin sleepy body. Like, all of that is still so batshit out there. Mm-hmm. You could have had all of this laid out and you're still not going to make that jump. Yeah. So the TV show does give that to you, and I think it works better. It's like your harness analogy. Like they took us for a walk.
Supported us the whole time.
But like let out the line in a much more even way versus what is happening here. And then in the last, like, and
then just boom.
Right.
All
they
the
could have waited,
information.
right. They could have waited 5.5 hours and then been like, and this is all the things you didn't realize have been happening. That would have upset me so much.
And that is actually a very interesting observation between books and TV shows, because you guys, this is just a large experiment for Mike and I to sort of understand more about like storytelling and what medium do we enjoy better and some stories do better. This story does better visually, I believe. I think you need that visual aspect to really get it, because it is such an outside the box idea. So for me, that was huge.
A big thing that the TV show has going for it in its favor, they saved the cat. There is no cat death in the TV show. It's threatened. And because I read the book, I was like, don't do it. I think I actually literally turned away when we were watching this, and you were like, I'll let you know what happens. Don't worry, don't watch it, because I can't deal with animal being harmed and things, and especially cats. I'm a big cat guy. So the cat is safe. So I was very, very happy about that. That's a giant plus for me. But I was reading about this, and someone asked the question, by killing the cat, you really get to understand what kind of psychopath Adele is. Do you lose some of that because she doesn't actually kill the cat, right? She paints in blood, which we don't even know where she gets the blood from, or if it's just red paint. She writes slut in the house, but she doesn't kill the cat. Does that actually undercut Adele's psychopathy?
I think it does. I think that the one Easter egg you get from the book to the movie, and maybe there's a lot more, but I'll tell you one you can get, is I think it's hilarious that they put this woman, Eve, who is a shorter woman, she's probably only 5 foot, 5'1", something like that, in these stubby platform shoes where it's like the heels are really chunky and fat, which is not popular of the time or anything like that. But I think that's an Easter egg that, like, we're not going to do the stiletto scene, because she never, ever wears thin stiletto heels. And so to me, like, that's like a winkety wink to the audience. Like, we're not going to kill the cat like that, like it happens in the book. So yeah, I agree with you. That was a real yay that they didn't harm an animal. I didn't need that. But yeah, it raised the stakes like really high on Adele, that she was that much of a psycho. So yeah, again, to your point, there was a lot less Adele being Adele in the show. And you were saying, because we don't have her point of view, we don't have that same like voiceover kind of narration, but we also don't have these actions. There was still more implication in the show that maybe she killed her parents, I thought. I thought that they did more of a winky wink, that like maybe she was more like not that she did it, but there was more of a like she's capable of doing it, I thought, in the show than in the book.
For me, I think it was more by the ratcheted down, David is actually a murderer and or abuser vibe in the TV show. In the book, we end up suspecting that David maybe is doing all of these things, that he is maybe abusing Adele, right, which as you pointed out, they really ratchet down, but like also making the connection of David just happened to be around the farmhouse at nighttime when the parent, like all of that is really played down.
I think they made it seem like David did it in the book, but I think in the show they made you feel Adele did it.
That's what I'm saying. I think they played down all of David is really behind everything bad that's happened in this story is David, which the book really plays up. I think they removed entirely from this. There's no Louise wondering in the TV show, like, David is hurting Adele, David killed the parents, like David did something to Rob. Yes, there is that because you have to have some of that just in order for this story to go. But you never really, even Louise saying it, there's no conviction. No one really believes David did this, right? So you're really kind of counting down until Louise finally clicks in after she talks to Marianne and she realizes that she's been played by Adele from the beginning. Even before that, you're never really buying David did this. Maybe Louise is thinking it, but we're not really buying.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. In the book, though, I felt differently.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you and I disagreed on some of the abuse stuff in the book, but David seems much more sinister and guilty and violent in the book than he does in the TV show. So, process of elimination, I think you have to suspect Adele of doing the bad things in the TV show, because they really take that away from David entirely. There's no suspense there for me in the TV show at all that David is really behind all of these things.
Well, only there were some parts. Like, remember, there was some portions where like he barked at Louise at work, or he barked at her and yelled at her in ways that you kind of, I don't know, as a woman, I stepped back and was like, whoa, that was like a really big response. Remember, he has to apologize to her.
He does.
Because he like screams at her. Like, I mean, dude has some like volatility, definitely. And so I think that they left that amount in there. I think we're in agreement here that like they kind of changed the intensity of the characters in that adaptation. Different characters got their volume turned up. Some of the characters got their volume turned down. And that really did change the vibe of the whole story.
Let's talk about Sophie, Louise's best friend, who does appear in the TV adaptation, though I would say she has I don't even know if in the book she has a significant role, but she has even less of that, I think, in the TV adaptation in the Netflix series. They also play down a lot the fact that she is an active cheater, because I think the role she serves for Louise is Louise thinks she's going to have an ally here. It's like, you get it, right? You do these things. You understand the tangled web a little bit. So Sophie comes across more as she doesn't agree with getting so involved with David and Adele in the book, but she is at least more sympathetic to, you're a single woman, he's a guy, people have sex, like, I get it. Like, I don't want to say she's a goody two-shoes in the TV show, but she definitely doesn't seem nearly sympathetic in any way to Louise and Louise's plight in the TV show.
I would say that she definitely is not filled out as a character at all in the show to me. So I feel like that almost seemed odd, except for the idea that we understand that they have to isolate her as a character. Like, none of this works if she has any sounding board. Like, if anybody, and I mean anybody, we talked about Adam being around more, we talked about the ex-husband even being around, any of those people provide like her moment of like rationale where she's like, wait a minute, what the frick am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? So I feel like downplaying Sophie helps. Again, I feel like they're trying to help the Louise character create this like why would a person do the things she did? Well, what if you removed the peer support? What if now she really doesn't have the same relationship, even you could say with the other receptionist? In the book, they had this really warm, I thought, relationship with the sharing of the sandwiches, and there was like some nurturiness to this. I felt like that relationship in the show, it was just very shallow. It was very like
much more streamlined. For
she's
sure.
there, but she doesn't really impact anything. She doesn't provide Louise any outlet or anything. They really did a good job, I think, in the show of making Louise feel like an island. Like, kiddo is out of the picture on vacation, or, her friend's not really any type of actual, of substance in her life right now. She seems vulnerable and like ripe for the picking in the show. I felt like she had more support and more people checking in and more sort of accountability because of Adam, because of Ian, because of Sophie in the book. There was more. Even the other receptionist, I felt like, asked more questions and sort of, there was like a little more prying eyes,
I want to talk about Adam because for me, that's the last really big change here is there's a lot less focus on Adam. There's a lot less focus on her role as mom, and so there's also less Ian. There's the entirety missing really of the new wife and the baby on the way, and those motivations to making Louise maybe be a little more reckless, which is one of the things that kind of sets her down the road when Adam is away for the month in France. I think that all works to the benefit of the story, because for me, reading the book, I found it very hard to believe Louise's motivations because she was being so reckless with Adam's safety. She was being so reckless with her own safety, putting Adam at the risk of not having a mom. And her choices were so insanely out of touch with what I think especially single parent who clearly devoted so much of their time and life and energy to taking care of their very young child. It made Louise's choices really hard to believe and stomach and certainly not agree with in the book. By downplaying Adam and all of that aspect of it, I wasn't as put off by Louise making dumb decisions towards the end of the story.
So I think we're saying the same thing, in that I think that the show made Louise's choices more palatable for us than they were in the book. And I think they did it in a couple different ways. Downplaying Adam also made the impact of what we realized just happened in this story and what is going to happen to Adam I think it makes it, I can only say like remotely palatable, because if you took out the harming of the cats, you know, they didn't take out the threat basically to Kiddo. In the book, it's explicit, in my opinion. Like, I mean, we know what is going to happen to Adam. In the show, I think they leave it a slight bit more open, that like perhaps this boy doesn't have to be killed by his faux mother. They actually kept Adam at a distance, which I know you didn't like when we were watching it, because it kind of seemed like Adam should be playing more of a role at this point. Like she should be coming back to Adam and feeling more ties to Adam. But I wonder if it was a very purposeful decision to downplay him so that we wouldn't feel as connected to him, so that loss, when we feel that loss at the end, and what we realize all that is about to be lost, is a little less of a sting.
I think you're right. I would also say, though, all of that at the end, and it's much less explicit of, you know, children have accidents all the time. Adam won't be a problem to get rid of. Rob Weese turns around, and that face that Sonamona Brown makes as Rob Weese, that is some creepy ass stuff. That is some great face acting. It really transformed her. It looked like something out of like when Michael Jackson turns around in the Thriller video, and he's like the zombie at the end all of a sudden. It was very much like that. It was very very
to me, honestly, when I saw that scene, my first thought was, this is why you were cast. Like this exact moment where you can show this range just on your face, you know this person is not this person anymore. And that, I mean, I give her all the credit in that moment for owning that part, because wow, she showed that this, you know, everything's different inside of her now, you know, and you could see it so plainly. I thought that was remarkable. It made me feel like, it's funny, the more that I'm like talking about how great I felt like she was in this role, because I think she was, even though she did not match the book, I still think I preferred her over everybody else in the show. I thought she was cool. I thought she was fun. She would definitely be the one I'd want to be my friend, which is a weird thing because that isn't how Louise was described. You know, she wasn't cool and she wasn't like this fun chick and whatever. This woman, Louise, that I met from the show, I'd want to have pizza with her. I'd want to watch TV. I'd want to go hang out and go out with friends with her. Like, she was cool. The whole idea that Adele was such all these steps up from her, beauty-wise or status-wise or whatever, just did not hold water because of this actress who played Louise.
If I walk into a bar and I see the two of them at the bar, I'm going to, and I'm inclined to approach one of them. I'm going to approach Louise before I approach Adele 10 out of 10 times. Like, her whole vibe was much more fun. But even like attraction wise, like this just didn't work for me for what we were supposed to get from the characters.
That you would have like thrown away Louise to run to Adele because Adele was just so striking.
Right. I wouldn't be like talking to Louise. Adele walks in and then like I push her off a cliff or something and be like, Adele is here now. No, there's zero of that. But that's only because the book told me I was supposed to think about it like that. My final thought again would be, don't read the book if you're going to watch the TV show.
What a funny recommendation we're having. But yeah, I'm with you. You know, in the first one in Thursday Murder Club, I think we said pick one or the other. Either watch the show or read the books. But I don't actually think they complement or in any way help each other. So just stick to one and go with it. In this one, I highly recommend the show over the book, because unless you are if you're a hardcore book club person and then you read you just like devour books, then go for it. Okay. If you're going to read this in 2 or 3 days and you are somebody who has, you know, read so many mystery and so many murder books that like this twist will not even shake you. Okay, go for it. But if you are like the majority of us and read like a couple books a year and you would like to know the plot of this story, but you really don't think you have, you know, this much time in you to read this book or whatever, highly recommend the show. I think that the show was fun and different. I like shamed myself for not coming up with any type of thing close to what the ending was, because I like to think that I've read enough that I would be willing to think outside the box, but I just didn't. I didn't have enough of outside the box in my brain.
But at least the TV show gives you the opportunity to get there.
You have enough clues.
There are enough clues. They establish Rob and his sexuality earlier on. They establish the astral projecting. They establish the astral projecting of the two of them together, Rob and Adele, in the flashbacks where they're laying side by side. The first time you see that isn't when he kills her. They establish this as a thing before it's fatal. They allow you to guess the ending. This is my problem with the book. This is I had a twin I never told you about. I hate that. Give me the clues. You don't have to spoon feed me, but let me, once you reveal the twist, be able to go back through the book and say, okay. The TV show gave you that to some extent. The book did not.
I mean, it's still a leap.
It is.
Because there's a fair chance you've never even heard of it.
That's one leap. All right. We're leaving our body and we're floating around and we're doing it together. Even if you understand that, it's still then such a leap. But at least when you see it, you'd be like, oh, girl, don't do that. Don't leave your body. Why are you leaving? You're leaving your husk. Why are you're exposed? There's a fire. You're on the doorstep. What are you doing? Like, all of those are just bad decisions at that point. But at least you could be like, oh, okay, I see what they did here. You need to go build like a roadmap and be like, oh, no, that's what they did. If you read the book has got a couple of sins in it that I would not recommend to people, I don't think.
And I actually think that when you're talking about the twist of astral projection, I think that it's visually much easier to understand than when you're reading it. I think this is one of those few times, and it's not always the case, but sometimes having the visual moment is what you need to make those little synapses be like, da-da, I totally freaking get it. And so, like, for a lot of people, if you read the book and you were like, I don't understand, I truly don't understand, then go watch the show, because the show is like it's like reading the book and having Cliff Notes kind of like all in one. Like they're feeding you extra information as you go. They're trying to pad it along and make sure you're getting it the whole time. It will explain everything, I think, in a much better way than the book did. And again, here's the deal. Sarah Pinborough, I do not fault you for wanting to keep the twist close to the vest for so long. I really don't. This was such a wild twist that, like, I could see where it was like, oh my God, I don't want to reveal it until I reveal it. I get it. I just think that there's a lot of readers who can't handle that at all, and like definitely want more support going through a story like this that is just that unusual.
I wanted to give a couple of one-line reviews from some outlets about the TV show, which I think maybe some of this is actually more even about the book than the TV show, but these are quotes about the TV show. So in their review, The Guardian gave this quote, "Who knew threesomes could be so boring?" giving it a 2-star review. Rolling Stone said, quote, "Netflix's new erotic thriller self-destructs with a series of needlessly crazy twists." The Independent gave it a 2-star review saying, "One bizarre twist can't make up for the yawning lulls." The Irish Times gave a mostly negative review saying, "You may be charmed, or it's possible you will wonder why you wasted 6 hours of your life." And lastly, Patrick Cremona from Radio Times said of the series, quote, "It flits from the bland to the bizarre without being particularly convincing or compelling."
Wow. Okay. That is kind of rough. You know what? Here's the deal. We are TV podcasters and we watch a lot of TV. So for me, 6 hours is not this investment of a lifetime. I don't know what people are talking about. There's plenty of shows that I invest more than 6 hours in that turned out are not a great show at all. That's a little bit hilarious to say like you're wasting your life. Is it a wild and unusual show? Yes, absolutely. If you're a sci-fi person, if you're a fantasy lover, go for it. The comments that what I'm hearing you say is things like, an erotic thriller or thinking of it as a relationship story. And again, does it fail on those fronts? Yeah, it's not an erotic thriller. It's not a relationship book. But that's how it is billed. And I think that's part of the problem.
Go back to the synopsis, though. The synopsis is even selling this, though, as an erotic relationship thriller.
Yes.
The
and
book is too, until it's not at the end, right? 3/4 of the book is erotic psychological thriller.
Not erotic. I don't think it's erotic.
Relationship psychological thriller. And then it's like, but there's a twist. And then there's another twist on top of that one. And then Rob Weese is going to kill the kid.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
I'm not,
and listen, I am not trying to act like this is like, 100% Rotten Tomatoes. I'm trying to act like this is like pinnacle of TV. This is an adaptation that I think actually did a better job explaining the story and being more approachable than the book was. And so that's where I'm placing it back on the shelf.
100% agree. I think we are entering the fall. We are in the fall. We're entering in winter, dark months where you're going to spend time indoors. Cold, dreary Sunday. You're looking for something to watch. This is perfect. Get a blanket, get some popcorn, get some wine.
It's wild.
Yeah. And you can bang this show out and you won't worry about it afterwards, but it will hold your attention for 6 episodes. I think that's exactly where it sits.
We have some moving on news about what we're going to be reading and talking about next.
Next month, even though this is actually coming out in November, our November book, though, is going to be All Her Fault by Andrea Mara, originally published in 2021, which is tying into a brand new Peacock limited series starring Sarah Snook. Literally, at the time this episode will be coming out, the first episode or first couple episodes will have just been released. So perfect time to read the book, get on board with the TV show. It's Sarah Snook. You can't beat that Succession, pedigree. This one seems like it's going to be much more straight thriller whodunit. So I'm kind of excited about that one. I haven't started the book yet. I'm going to be doing it when we hang up here. Then for December, we can tell you our December book too, going to be just a book, not an adaptation.
Yet. All of the rest of this author's books have been adapted. So this one is so fresh off the presses. It hasn't been adapted yet.
Do you want to say what it is?
So this one is called Culpability, and it is by Bruce Holsinger. It was part of Oprah's book club this past summer, 2025. We are going to read that for December. It's got a cool tech vibe. It's a lot about, I'll give you just the quick setup. It's basically self-driving car, and there's an accident, and I'll just leave that as that. And so Culpability is the name, as you might imagine. It's question mark about who's culpable in these situations. And I'm excited about it. I am reading it with my own book club, so I will have lots to contribute when it's time to talk about that guy.
I think that's going to do it for another episode of Book Club Beats Movie Night. If you wouldn't mind heading over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a 5-star review, rate, review, and subscribe. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star review. If you do, you're helping the show get some eyes. This is a brand new podcast that, all the reviews help it get some promotion by Apple and by Spotify. But if you also leave us a nice review, we're going to read it on the air, like this one that we received from Naomi. Hi, Mike and Caroline. I've been a follower from Gilded Age and loved your idea for a movie book club. I read Behind Her Eyes, and though I like mysteries, I never anticipated the quote sci-fi twist. I tried watching the series and thought it followed the book well, but I have no desire to watch him get away with multiple murders again. It disturbed me the first time. Why put myself through it again? Smiley face or laughing face. I'm hoping the next book is more of a regular mystery. Still loving the podcast, Naomi. Same Naomi that wrote you guys during the last season of Gilded Age. So Naomi, thank you for following us to the new podcast. And I think All Her Fault looks like it's going to be a good one, and I'm excited for it. And thank you for listening.
And if you guys out there are thinking, I need something lighter than this, and I want something like all the time, I want like a bunch of podcasts. Mike and I did 52 weeks of Christmas podcasts that you guys can get into the Christmas spirit, get into the holiday hooray of it all, and go watch some of those fun movies. And then we talk about them on the podcast, and you get a chance to listen to all the cool like facts and background stories, and we tell you about casting, we tell you about all the fun little trivia. So go check that out. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.